We don't smoke marijuana in Muskogee. We don't take no trips on LSD. We don't burn no draft cards down on Main Street. We like living right, being free.
Doing some prep work for the inner axle seal job. So I bought Mopar inner axle seals. I have a leak on my passenger side, and it's been leaking for a while now. Quite honestly, it actually started after I replaced the stock axles with the RCVs. I must have nicked the axle or something or the seal when I put it in. But anyway, bought some Mopar replacement seals. I also have, any day now, I'm going to be getting some RCV outer axle tube seals, which I'm excited about getting because a lot of the shit keeps getting in my axle tubes. A lot of times in the mud in one of our properties and so forth. So anyway, I got the vehicle up on jack stands. I got the tires underneath the frame, and I'm going to start disassembling some of this stuff today and drain the differential, take the Rancho glide plate off and the diff cover and so forth, and drain that. So some prep work today. Just gonna kind of piecemeal it, take my time as I'm in the mood for it, which seems like a good thing to get started. And you can see some of the oil that collects here on the outer seat, and I actually dried some of that yesterday, and I took it for a ride this morning to pick up the inner seals, and just from that short ride you can see the oil collecting there. So it's got to be done. So I'm optimistic that I can do this job, and I'm going to try to record it, my experiences and so forth, and I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be good.
White lightning still the biggest thrill.
So I started taking apart the Rancho glider. This is my diff armor. It's a nice skid plate, and it ties in with the armored diff cover. You can see it just goes around the differential. So I started by taking that apart. Then there is a electrical connection in there. That's actually what disengages and engages the locker via an electric signal right there. So that bolt needs to come out, and after I drain the differential, I want to carefully open that and remove it and get it unplugged. So that's going to be done, and then of course I'll be taking this armored diff cover off and the skid. All right, I got the Rancho glide plate off. It was a little difficult, mostly because you can see that some of this has been bent. I don't know if I can work any wonders with a sledgehammer or not with that. The other thing too is that these bolts are, I had to use longer half-inch, or actually these are 5/16 bolts to make up for the thickness of this plate and the thickness of the armored cover. So I had to add these stainless steel bolts. So anyway, we got that off. So we'll continue with the differential cover. All right, not particularly easy to get that Rancho glide plate off, and it's really only because it was so badly bent. But now I've loosened up these 5/16 head bolts. These were torqued at 30 inch-pounds, and I'll be breaking open the front differential cover here. Okay. And I use a lube blocker gasket, so that lube blocker gasket ought to pay some dividends here. It should be in good shape and should be reusable. A little disturbing to see the oil. Now I just changed this oil, and it is a little disturbing. There must have still been a lot of water in the bottom of this thing, because this oil looks like shit. Geez, I just changed this oil too. once again, not very happy about this. So when I changed the oil last time, I drained it from just the drain plug, and it was like very silvery gray. So there must have still been a lot of oil left at the bottom of the differential that was ruined from the water. So we'll make sure we clean it all out really good and get it squared away here. So I almost got it where I want it. All right, so basically the two 21 millimeter bolts that go right here and underneath it for the entire caliper and the adapter bracket, I just took it off, undid a couple clips on the ABS sensor, and set it on my lower control arm and put a tie wrap around it just to get it out of the way. And then I use a lug nut to hold this rotor on. So we'll pop the rotor off here, and we'll do the same thing on the other side, just taking our time. Nice, slow and steady wins the race here on this job. The metric bolt right here for the ABS sensor, okay, on both sides. Then you can take and unclip these little rubber grommets here. The calipers are tied up with a big beefy tie wrap right there out of the way. The 36 millimeter nut on the RCV axles has been loosened, okay? So now I put some penetrating oil on the 13 millimeter head bolts for the unit bearing. Underneath here, well, so far I undid the steering stabilizer. I think I'm just going to remove the tie rod rather than have to wrestle with it trying to pull the locker out. I want more room, so I'm going to undo the tie rod, the steer smarts, and drop that down out of the way. And the same progress over here. Speed sensor switch bolt out of there. Another thing that I have to do is these orange RCV boots. I got to use the knuckle and pry these off. I put some penetrating oil in there, and I got to get like a scraper tool on each side and pry the boot back inward and get that off the joint. So making some progress. Like I said, get some things done today. This axle nut right here on the passenger side also is loose. So we're making progress. All right, just loosened up the 21 millimeter bolts on the Steer Smarts tie rod. Gave her a few hits right here, didn't quite get out, had to give her a little tap on the top. You can see I'm gonna go undo the other side right now, and this big ass heavy tie rod is coming out of there. And then I'll take a tie wrap and take some of the weight off of that steering stabilizer and get that out of the way. So we're doing all right. All right, a couple thoughts about this boot. This thing was no joke to press off. I finally, I tried using the two flat pry bars on the side, used the knuckle for leverage. I was able to get a tie wrap underneath it and get some air in it, and then I was able to get it off. So that's a good thing anyway. But the other one needs to be done. I got to get these 13 millimeter head bolts off as well. So that's where I'm at right now. I have the unit bearing loose, not too bad. A little bit of penetrating oil, and then you put the socket back on the bolt from behind and whack it. So I'm going to gently start pulling this ABS sensor out. The nut is off, so once this is through, I can take the unit bearing off and coil up the ABS wire out of the way. And then I'll be able to pull this axle. I'll be able to pull it out of the locker and pull it through this boot, which I pressed off. So one side will be apart. So yeah, a little bit of labor, but not too bad. I'll tell you what, I'm looking in that axle tube and it's pretty bad. I must have been leaking oil a long time in there. I mean, pretty much the whole bottom 1/4 inch of it is all mud and oil. Freaking disgrace. So got a lot of cleaning to do. I got to get that locker out, but that's going to be tomorrow. So as you can see, both axles, both RCV axles, unit bearing, tie rod, sway bar disconnect, everything's been taken apart. If everything goes well tomorrow, if I'm feeling up for it, it's going to be time to very carefully take that locker out, disconnect that connection on the top, and take the bearing caps off and the shims, etc. And then some serious cleaning after I knock out the old seal. So I don't know, a few hours. I would say, quite honestly, taking my time and losing a little time on getting those RCV boots off. I would say 3 hours to get it this far. So I'm not a pro. I'm doing it on the ground, doing it with all hand tools, but I'm still very pleased. And most of the stuff has come apart pretty good. So this was the problem right here. This is the problem side. Okay, what we're looking at on the top of the differential, you can see that yellow wire going into that plug. So that is a gasketed plug that goes through the housing, and then underneath it, the 2 wires from the solenoid that actually engage the solenoid need to be disconnected. So the next thing, this was an 8mm bolt on the top. It was in there kind of good, hard to get at. So now very carefully, I have to break that seal and start working that thing gently so I don't end up having to get one from a dealer. So that'll be the next thing. That'll be tomorrow. The bolt's out, as I said, 8mm head on the top of it, and that needs to come out, get unplugged. Obviously the bearing caps need to come off. The shims, very carefully pull this whole carrier out. Then I got to bang the seals out on the left and the right. And man, are these axle tubes a mess, especially the leaking side, the passenger side. So I've got my work cut out for me, but disassembly so far went pretty well.